So Sprint's had their time to shine in the spotlight, and now it's AT&T's turn. What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and the Epic 4G Touch, or Galaxy S2 Epic 4G Touch, has been out for a couple of weeks. But AT&T users, get ready, because the Galaxy S2 is coming to you. It's going to be available starting Sunday, October 2nd, for $199.99. So finally, a subsidized price. You don't have to import it overseas, or from overseas, rather, with that nice $700 price tag. You're getting the sucker for $200. Now the question is, yeah, it has that dual-core 1.2 gigahertz Exynos processor. It looks just like the international version with a 4.3-inch Super AMOLED Plus display, but is this a device to get, or should you go with something like one of AT&T's LTE devices in a couple of months when those come out? We're going to try and figure that out in the full review, but first, special thanks to my boys at Best Buy Mobile, because they're always so good about hooking us up with phones for use in our One Paw Bandit game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, whether it's to get an AT&T, a Verizon, a Sprint, or a T-Mobile phone, they're going to hook you up. They're going to make sure not only you're walking out working, but that you get a phone. They're not biased. They're going to help you figure out what's best for you, and that's pretty cool, I think. At Best Buy Mobile, they'll help you get all that set up. Enough of that. Let's get into it, the review. In part one, I talked a little bit about the changing of the fonts, and I'll show you, in part one I was like, I'm not quite sure where this is. What's in screen display, you can change the overall font style, so we could change it to Choco Cookie, and you can see the font styles change as well, and you can get additional fonts online. So there's still some customization options, it's just not quite as heavy, if you will, as the international version. So in part two of the video, I'm going to go over some things, but I'm also going to take some of your Twitter questions, because earlier I reached out and asked, what would you like to see about this device, any particulars? And one of those was looking at the camera, so I'm going to jump right into that and take a look. I'm going to take a look at this Splenda packet, if you will, since it happened to be sitting on my desk with the 8-megapixel camera. Now, it has an 8-megapixel camera that's capable of shooting video in 1080p, and if you go to YouTube or go to the website, PhoneDog.com, I did a 1080p sample test on this phone. So take a look at it if that's something you're interested in. And you can, of course, flip the camera around pretty easily, turn on the flash or turn off the flash, and our settings include self-portrait, flash, shooting mode, scene modes, exposure values, and more. So a setup that's very similar to the Galaxy Tab 10.1, if you're familiar with the overall interface of that, where you can quickly change between camera and camcorder. But there's no physical camera button, so you do rely strictly on the physical button, or the virtual one, if you will, on the display to take the picture. But we'll zoom in on the Splenda. Let me get some of these shadows out of the picture here so we can take a look, get an up-close look at the Splenda packet. I'm going to pull away so we can get it. And let's see how it came out. Let me pull that. There we go, perfect. And so you can see that's what it looks like. There's a lot of light shining down. I didn't use the flash in the back, but it's a good-looking camera. It's not going to hold a candle to some of the top-notch ones on the market, perhaps the Nokia N8, or I still think the iPhone 4 has a better camera overall. But this, definitely good, and even when zoomed in, you can really see the nutrition facts. A little blurry once you zoom in past a certain point, but you go over here to the logo, and you can see kind of the texture of my desk. You can see Splenda pretty clearly, the blue on the yellow, and more. So it's a good picture, especially if you're in a well-lit situation. You're not in something like this where it's artificial light. If you go outside, there's plenty of sun. You're going to get a great picture out of this. I think you'll be overall pretty pleased with it. And a lot of editing options as well. So if that's your thing, you can take advantage of that. And there's also, and I'm going to zoom over where I can find it. Let's see, photo editor. I'm going to select a picture. Let me pull back so I can actually see this. I have some vision issues today. So we'll pick a picture and we'll edit that. And it's loading up right now. It's still loading. So we'll see what exactly. Camera. So let's go over here. And you can see it gives me plenty of options to edit. I can crop if I want to. So we'll crop out. Let's just say that. Crop that. And then we'll change the contrast. And then we'll change, I'm just making it look terrible, obviously, but we'll do the lens blur. That's always a good one. Lens blur. Actually, that looks really terrible, but that's okay. You get the idea. You can do some nice picture editing from the device. So if somebody's like, send me a picture of yourself, you send it, you're like, I don't really like it in color, you can change it to grayscale, you can crop it, you can do some things with it, and then you can save it and send it over to your friend. So now it's time for your Twitter questions, and the camera one was, the camera was one of them, but is the screen pixelated due to a low PPI? No, not at all. In fact, the Super AMOLED Plus is absolutely gorgeous, and especially in comparison to some of the other competitive technologies on the market, like QHD with PinTile, something like what the Droid Bionic uses and the Droid 3. Take a look at this. I'm zooming it in as close as focusing it in as close as I can so you can see. And you can see even when zoomed in, I don't know why I keep saying zoom, focused in, you can see very clear. Blacks are very black. There's little to no pixelation around the battery meter. It's a good looking display in comparison to PinTile, which is brighter, but still very pixelated. So I've been very pleased with it. Battery life and multitasking power is the next question. Battery life's been pretty decent. It has a 1,650 milliamp hour battery. Now, it's not going to wow you by any means. It's not going to win any awards, especially on the Android front. With battery life, I make it into the evening before it requires a charge. I pulled it off a couple of days ago, about 9:30, and about 8 o'clock it needed to be recharged. And I'd used it pretty moderately to almost kind of low heavily, if you will, throughout the day. So something to keep in mind, you know, the only thing about it, like any other Samsung device, this thing takes forever to charge. So if you're like me and you live off 15 or 20 minute charges, you know, you're in the car or you're going in between meetings, things like that, this isn't going to be your device because it literally will charge like 2 percentage points in 10 minutes. So something to keep in mind, whereas something like the the Inspire 4G might charge a little bit faster. So that's something you rely on. Either get an extended battery, get an extra power cord to sit at the desk in the office, or go with a different device. So multitasking power, you know, I've been really pleased with it. I mean, you can see, for example, 2 active applications open right now. We'll open up web because we're going to take a look at phonedog.com and see what it looks like, because I want to show you. Pinch to zoom, phonedog.com. Let's see your phone. Try that one more time. Phonedog.com. And we're going to take a look at that and let that load up. And while it's loading, I'll see if I can answer any additional ones without having to change the screen. Let's see here. Scrolling down, let's see. Looks a lot. No, that's not. Battery life, another one. Reading in direct sunlight, it's not as bad as it used to be. I can still see it in direct sunlight. It's a little bit washed out, but not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. So you see some checkerboarding there, and granted, the page isn't fully loaded just yet. But again, quick transitions thanks to that dual-core processor between portrait and between landscape. Now again, it's, you know, kind of screens of scale, if you will. If you're coming from something like the Epic 4G Touch with that 4.5-inch display, yeah, do not ask again. This is a cool feature I'll show you in just a second. If you're coming from that, then it may bother you. It's a little bit smaller display, but I think it's perfectly reasonable. And again, pinch to zoom, very fast. It's almost a kind of creepy fluidity, if you will. I mean, very, very fluid to the point where it's a little odd. You don't see any checkerboarding. Once the page is loaded, you rarely see checkerboarding, and you see how quick and easy and just kind of buttery smooth, for lack of a better phrase. I say that in a lot of the Galaxy videos, but still very smooth, no lag whatsoever. And then you have this cool feature where you put your thumbs on it, and you can zoom in and zoom out that way. So you see what I'm doing here. And again, you know, just the ability to do that, I mean, that's what I would consider kind of a processor-intensive task. And you can see it handles it with ease. And I can zoom it all the way out and then bring it up like that. And you can see, really make it look like kind of play a game on your mind here in the camera. You all are like, stop that, Aaron, stop that. But you get the idea, and then over in landscape mode as well. Now, one thing I really like is when you zoom out to that point like I just did, you can open up a new window, and then we'll zoom back out of that one. And then over here, you can see it brings it right back up where I left off, and it gives me a nice page preview so I can see exactly where I left off. Let's take a look at Media Hub too, because I want to show you what Samsung's custom interface here looks like for my media, or for media rather, and for movies and TV rentals, things like that. So it's loading up right now, and you're going to see the featured content up here at the top. I'm going to Bridesmaids, for example, and you can see it allows me to watch a preview. I can own it for 18 bucks or rent it for $3.99. I can watch it on the device, and it brings up the summary, the actors, the directors, things like that. I don't want to update right now, but I guess I have to if I want to use it. Let's try, see if it'll let me into anything else. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to have to update that, which I don't have time to do in the video. But you got a quick glimpse there of what Media Hub looks like, and then you have Social Hub as well, which will bring it up right here. And I can get my email delivery, I can sync up my social network, kind of a social aggregation tool between Facebook, Twitter, and more. So I'm not going to actually set that up, but I just wanted to pop in there and show you what it looks like. So let's go into Quadrant Standard and take a look at that really quickly. These devices are known for having excellent Quadrant Standard scores, and not to spoil it for you, but the Galaxy S2 is no exception. Now, call quality-wise, I've been really pleased with this device. The earpiece is nice and loud, and I noticed this one doesn't get as hot as the Epic 4G Touch. The Epic 4G Touch kind of got hot right around here at the top of the display, so if you held it up against your ear for an extended period of time, it was a little toasty after a while, and your ear kind of got like, ouch, this is a little hot. You know, if you're on an hour call or an hour and a half conference call, it got warm, that's for sure. I don't see that on this one, and also the wireless radio appears to be pretty decent as well. I took it to an AT&T dead spot in North Charlotte, and overall I was pretty impressed. It was choppy, you could tell it was staticky, thought it was going to drop the call a couple of times, but overall I was pretty impressed with it. Send those benchmark results. Come on now. Very impressed with it, and my callers had no problems hearing me with decent service as well. So, you know, I passed the call test with flying colors. Battery life's going to be pretty decent with moderate use. But, you know, I'd carry an extra car charger if you're going to use it on a regular basis and use it pretty heavily. Carry a car charger, carry a spare charger for the office. 3,202 on quadrant standard. So compare that to something like 2,000 to 2,500 that you see with, you know, the other high-end devices like the Droid Bionic, like the Photon 4G, like the Evo 3D, and you really see how well these devices perform. Now, again, quadrant standard is kind of a day-to-day, or isn't a day-to-day performance test. It's more of a kind of, you know, elevated performance test, if you will. It doesn't really talk about real-life specs. I mean, all these devices that I mentioned in this video are pretty fast because they have dual-core processors, but you can see this one just blows it out of the water, and I've been really impressed with it. I want to show you a speed test as well. Now, granted, it's 4:55, so we're kind of into rush hour, and I am uptown right now, so the speeds may not be the best in the world, but actually, while that's loading up, I'll show you some of the results that I've picked up recently. You know, I'm not getting any HSPA plus speeds or anything that I would consider extraordinarily fast, with the exception of this one. Right around 8 o'clock on the 26th, I picked up one 3.47 megabits per second on the download, and one just over 1 megabit per second on the upload. Then you can see the rest. These have been taken all 22 tests all around the city of Charlotte, north, south, east, and west sides, and you can see the speed. So again, you know, right on par with Verizon's EVDO Revision A. But again, if you're comparing 4G technologies, LTE is going to blow it out of the water in comparison to HSPA plus. But still, one, AT&T is working on that. And two, you know, you may not need 24 megabits per second. You may be fine with this. And if you are, the speeds have been relatively decent. You can see I picked up some nice speeds on the 23rd as well. So it all depends on, you know, how many people are on the cell site, where you're at in the city, in various cities, and what time of day it is. Because obviously 2 a.m. is going to perform a little bit better than 5 o'clock in the afternoon during rush hour. I really like this task manager as well, and I'm kind of jumping around, but I can exit all my applications, so you don't need to download Advanced Task Killer. They've really done well with this in recent, I'd say months. I almost said years, but then I was like, no, it hasn't been that long. Recent months with these task killers that are built in. So TouchWiz has a native task killer, Motorola's UI has a native task killer, and HTC Sense has a native task killer as well. So it's nice to see that. You don't have to install a third-party program and really worry about it messing up your device. So all in all, it's been a really impressive device. I really enjoy the Galaxy S2. You know, it'd be a tough call between this one and the Epic 4G Touch. You just have to wait for the dogfight to see which one pulls it off there. But, you know, by far the best device in AT&T right now. But iPhone, or Apple's already announced that they're going to announce a new iPhone. They've announced that they're going to announce. That really didn't make a lot of sense. But you get what I'm trying to say. The iPhone announcement's coming on October 4th. And so like anything else in the mobile industry, this thing's going to have a couple of days in the spotlight, and then everybody's going to be all crazy about the iPhone 4S or the iPhone 5. So like anything mobile, it's moving very quickly. But right now, at this point on September 29th at 4:57 p.m., the Galaxy S2 is the best device on AT&T. Much more coverage to come on PhoneDog.com with this device. Be prepared for some awesome dogfights on the site as we lead up to the iPhone launch, as we lead up to, you know, we talk about some of the other high-end Android phones, the Droid Prime, and more. Keep a lookout for those on PhoneDog.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Facebook.com/PhoneDog. We're always doing cool contests, so be sure to check those out and like our page. And as always, follow me on Twitter. Let me know what you think of this device at PhoneDog_Aaron, and on Facebook at my personal page, Facebook.com/PhoneDogAB. Thanks so much for watching. As always, we'll see you next time, and stay tuned for those awesome dogfights. Take care.